Today we're going over what is the actual meta within Descent. Now, before we can actually get into this, I need to give a huge shout out to Toasty because this wouldn't have been possible without him. It's been something on my to-do list for God knows how long, but for those of you that know me, I absolutely detest this game mode, and I can only really do it when I have someone that I enjoy playing with there with me, / carry. So huge shout out to Toasty. He does on occasion stream on Twitch, so there is a link in the description for his Twitch. And for those of you that haven't come across Toasty before, if you've watched my guides on how to do incursion, he is the one that basically found all the stuff, or with help from others found all the stuff, as well as was also our incursion leader. So if you happen to have done an incursion with me or with Bro Squad, Toasty is the guy you thank. And again, for helping me out with this video, Toasty, you are a top tier human being. All this being said, let's just crack on with what it is. And to put this simply, this is kind of, I want to say abusing a mechanic, but it's an intended mechanic for balance within the game that we have found a way to just unbalance. It's not a bug, it's not an exploit, it's kind of just an oversight on how the devs actually put something into the game, because where certain things work with certain weapons, when you can put that certain thing on any weapon, yeah, things just get weird and wacky. And this thing is Plague of the Outcasts, Pestilence's exotic talent. The way in which it works is, quite simply, on a shotgun, each pellet applies 1 stack. So that means per shot, you are applying 8 stacks, assuming all 8 players hit, of Plague of the Outcasts. However, the caveat to this, for balance, the way in which Plague of the Outcasts is calculated on a shotgun is its pellet damage. It's essentially divided by 8. So what we then do is also have on us and equipped the highest single damage weapon within the Descent. This would be the M44 carbine, the same weapon as White Death, just without the headshot. So essentially, we build up stacks with an ACS-12, so we're doing 8 stacks a shot, and we're also firing at 300 RPM. This is 40 stacks per second. We then swap weapons. That's it. We just change weapon. If you've got your shotgun on 1 or your first slot for those console players and you just swap weapon, the stat calculation will change to the full damage of that weapon, and you can get absolutely mental, and I do mean mental damage. The highest I have personally seen is about 2 million. On the run that you can see in the background, this is all the same run, it's just cycling through just the part where I'm fighting. We were able to get up to about 350k per tick. Now, the build that I was running through this playthrough, as you can see, is the ACS-12, the M44 carbine, and I've just picked a pistol. I'm running Breathe 3, Plague of the Outcasts, and Incessant Chatter for my exotics, and then for my offensive, Obliterate, Vigilance, Gunslinger, Composure, Optimist, and Close and Personal. We'll cover the defenses in a bit. However, for the utility skills, we have Optimist, Extra, Sadist, Eyeless, Vindictive, and Trauma. This is just one of the ways in which I like to play this. However, for the real optimal set, there are a few things you will actually need to change. For example, Obliterate and Close and Personal can disappear. You actually want Overwatch as well as Unhinged. Now, I personally don't like Unhinged, which is one of the reasons why I do my Plague build, if I can, RNG willing, like this. However, you don't want Obliterate and Close and Personal, you just want Unhinged, as well as Overwatch. The rest stay the same. Gunslinger is actually a huge part of this setup. And Empowered. Now, Empowered is status effect. Now, weirdly, status effect applies to Plague of the Outcasts in-game. The remaining 2 slots really are going to be personal choices for you. I personally do recommend Trauma. It's a great CC setup, as well as, ideally, And a lot of people aren't going to like this. Ideally, for your exotics, Plague of the Outcasts, obviously, this is all about Plague of the Outcasts. But for your second exotic, you want, realistically, you do want Glass Cannon, and then you go Bloodsucker. Now, this is a build designed to help push higher loops. The highest loop I've seen this build personally go to is like loop 61 by Rise of Brutality, Stella, and a few others. And this is what I think 3 of their players were running, and one of them was running the Oxy type setup. Now, obviously, a lot of people aren't going to like Glass Cannon. I don't particularly like Glass Cannon within the Descent, so I actually opt for Lady Death, Breathe Free, and this just allows me to get more bullet damage out initially, and then while I move from area to area, I build up those stacks again. Breathe Free only affects your weapon damage. It does not affect Plague of the Outcasts, which is why, under this sort of setup, technically, Glass Cannon is better. When it comes to actually selecting your attributes, no blue. I'm afraid to say. I'm aware a lot of people are going to go, oh yeah, you need blue cores in Descent. You actually don't, because if you're going to be pushing, this is the whole point of this, if you're going to be pushing higher loops, once you get to about loop 40, everything basically one-shots you anyway, regardless of how much armor you have, so your best bet is just kill them faster, and for this, nothing actually beats Plague of the Outcasts. It decimates everything. It is also the only real talent in the game that has the highest scaling with just picking up reds. So a lot of people that would be like, oh, how'd you get to 2 billion? Well, get to like loop 60 with all the reds you've picked, you've got like 800% weapon damage, and then with all the talents, yeah, it gets crazy. Now, just to go over why I have what I have selected. 1, I'm using Vindictive and Trauma. This basically gives me permanent crit chance as well as crit damage. 2, due to the way in which we are positioning ourselves throughout each section, Close and Personal is up not all the time, but the vast majority of the time. Simply just because we will camp the spawn doors because we have the capability to do it. I personally am not running Overwatch because Toasty is running Overwatch, and we're both basically running different variants of the Plague build. Hopefully if Toasty watches this, he can, if he has a screenshot of it, he can post or tell what pieces he had. And the reason we run Gunslinger as a priority through both is when you swap from your ACS 12 to your M44, you get a huge boost in total weapon damage, which applies to Plague. Optimist is really powerful here, despite the fact that we are going to be getting our kills refreshing our ammo because I'm running Chatterbox. Chatterbox is there for the ammo refresh, not the fire rate. The fire rate is nice, but the majority of our damage is coming from Plague, which all fire rate is going to do is increase the rate in which we stack, which already isn't a problem because ACS 12. So Chatterbox is just there because of the refresh of ammo. Some of you might notice Optimist. If you're refreshing ammo, Optimist is pretty useless. Ideally, how you actually want to be playing this is the M44. You should, if you're cycling your weapons, put this down to 1 bullet left. So before each room, essentially, just swap to your M44, make sure you've got 1 bullet left in the chamber. This way you build up stacks of ACS, swapped to the M44, which will then give you the maximum buff through Gunslinger, and then Optimist only having 1 remaining bullet, which puts Optimist at the maximum buff. And yeah, you just decimate everything. Now time for the most controversial part of how I like to run it, and that's going to be Sadist as well as Eyeless. You could also add Ignited into this, however, these 3 talents, admittedly I only run Sadist as well as Eyeless because Trauma, however these 3 talents, including Ignited, are still amplifiers. They're technically the most powerful damaging talents within Descent because they are amplifiers with no drawback. And just in case you would like to see what these can do to rogues on loop 27, well, then just sit back, relax, and watch the mess. Everything just gets absolutely melted. There goes 1 rogue, Toasty's just killed his first one, and then we tag team this last one. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.